Do you think, while abusers are abusing, they even have the slightest idea what they are doing to that child or to that adult? Let's not forget this happens to adults too. Do they realise they're giving them a life sentence? Do they actually realise what is happening in that brain? I mean, if I didn't tell my girls every single day, my daughters every single day, how much I love them, I would worry that they didn't feel loved. Is that part of my abuse? Is that what has made me the person I am today? I believe part of my abuse has. I worry so much about hurting other human beings, and I guess people often say, don't they, there's a path. You either are a survivor or you end up being a victim. But aren't victims survivors, and aren't we surviving victimization? I worry about the repercussion of my words all the time. Words are so incredibly powerful, and in my work, I teach this and I guide this always, but be careful. Words are so incredibly powerful. They take a second to say, but you can spend a lifetime trying to understand them. I know during my life I've blocked much out, meaning I've tried to write different chapters of my life, and it's almost as though my life is a book. There was my childhood, and then I threw that book away and I started a new book. I started a clean page to get through, I guess, the tough times. Do you think abusers' families really understand what their family have done to somebody who they've abused? Did I tell you about 3 years ago I found my uncle on Facebook? Well, it's not hard these days, is it? You know, my uncle who abused me, my uncle who my mum said, apparently she told me this, I didn't know this until we had a conversation, possibly about 5-6 years ago, that he was sent away. I found my uncle on Facebook. I have no relationship with my mother. I wanted to. I tried really hard. I tried really hard. But when my first daughter was born, 3 months prem, and she came to the hospital, she came to see her as my daughter at 2 pounds and 7 ounces was fighting for her life in an incubator when I gave birth to her at 28 weeks. The first thing my mother said to me was, well, it's not my fault. It's not from my side. My daughter's father, who sadly has passed now, told her to leave, and that was the first time anybody had ever stuck up for me against my mother and her sharp tongue. The first ever time. My uncle's profile, my mother's brother, who abused me, apparently was told to leave, and he went overseas. So I found his profile and I sent him a message. And I know he read it because it showed read under the message. But he never replied, not even to say sorry, nothing, not even to acknowledge it. And in my message, I told him he took the one thing that was sacred. I told him I had nightmares. I told him I remember the burning smell of the electric fire. I told him, I hope you never, ever touch another child. I hope you have not done this to anybody else, because what you have given me is a life sentence. You took something so precious and sacred. But he replied, nothing. I got nothing back from him. I was not told, he was not told to leave until I approached my mum, as I just said. My mother never showed any emotion. I challenged her on Facebook about my childhood, but she saw it as a battle, another battle that I would lose. For her sharp, nasty tongue just cut and cut and cut and cut. My abuse was never discussed, even when I brought it up as an adult. All she said was, your uncle went away, and that's it. She spoke to me of my uncle going away as if it didn't matter, as if it was just, that's what happened. I also found out that it was my brothers that actually told my mum that my uncle was abusing me. My mum told me it was not up for discussion anymore. And that was the end of it. It was so infuriating. God, do you know how much I hope nobody else is suffering at his hands? And as for my mother, there are thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of women out there who cannot conceive children. And my mother had children. Where is the justice in that? And I read a quote once, a quote which made a lot of sense to me. And although I will never, never forget, this quote still stands to me. In the end, just three things matter: how well we have loved, how well we have lived, and how well we have learned to let go. I believe life is all about lessons. Maybe one of my lessons was and is to believe in my inner strength. I know it's silly. I've always believed in good old Walt Disney. As he says, true love conquers all. But that love does not need to come from your mother or your father, from your parents. It can come from anywhere. My true love was when my children were born. My instinct to protect was overwhelming. So true love never dies. It really does conquer all. My girls helped me to forgive my past. Not for others, not for them, but for me and my girls. My life seems to have been a series of chapters, as I've said. The chapter where my girls were born was when I was reborn. There are many chapters, so many chapters. And I did not write this for attention. I did not write this for sympathy. I did not write this for anything but to show there is a choice in life. There really, really is. I am not even sure if my husband knows fully me. My husband of 4 years now. I know my husband who passed. It's coming up to 13, 14 years now. He never really knew the full me. Sad, isn't it? But you know what? I give what I can. And this very, very lovely man who I met and married, and I'm married to now, accepts me for who I am. Is that not true love? I'm not really sure if my father is even alive. I think he is. I'm not even sure. I used to think once they've all died, I'll have closure. But I know that's not true. I was also very, very scared of writing this. And actually, I wrote this and then Spirit said, no, you're going to actually speak this. So thank you, Spirit. Because although this has been quite challenging, it's also been very, very therapeutic. And also, I would like to believe that you hearing this makes you realise it is real and it has happened. And by looking at me today, I am a mother. I am a wife. I am a woman. I'm a business owner. I am happy. I am proud. I love myself. I enjoy my life. I am balanced. But I was scared of writing this. Scared that I might get into trouble even at my age. Scared. Why do our abusers allow us to feel that way still? I guess I'm a psychiatrist's dream. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's how I feel, isn't it? I don't want to be told how I feel. I know how I feel. My father used to call me to get the toilet paper for him. When I went into the toilet, he was sitting on the toilet. And he would take my underwear off and he would pick me up to bounce me on his lap. I never looked at him. I just used to stare into a space. Find a spot on the wall. He sat me on him with my back to him, and I used to stare at the chipboard paper. Is that right? Paper with bubbles on. He bounced me on his lap. Then we would go to the bathroom. A bath was usually run, and he would slide the heavy door shut. And with a bar of soap, he would clean me. He would rub the soap hard into my private parts. It stung, and I remember it hurt. He would then make me stand in the bath and with the jug full of boiling hot water, pour it over my lower body. This happened regularly. I hate baths. I cannot remember when it happened. I want to say at night times when I was wearing my nightie. I want to say sometimes in the morning. My dad did shift work. One thing I remember was, though, being told he was going to teach me how to kiss properly. I remember it so well, as though it was yesterday. And as I write this, I shudder, and I actually do feel quite sick remembering this. He lifted me onto his lap as we were in the toilet, and he turned me around and he put his mouth full on top of mine. It felt wet, heavy, strong. I felt sharp, which must have been his whiskers. He hadn't shaven, and I felt I couldn't breathe, and he licked my face. And I remember it. I do. I promise you, I remember it. And why am I writing this? Why would I be writing this? Why would I be pretending that this happened to me? I promise you, this really, really happened to me. Believe me. I know it's unbelievable. I know it really, really is. And this is one of the reasons I wanted to really, really say what I needed to say. And tell you the disgusting, horrible, graphic things that happened to me. Because when we see in the news, child abuse, this happened, a child was abused, we don't actually hear what those people did to those children. My father put his mouth over my mouth and taught me how to kiss. He put his tongue, he shoved his tongue into my throat and licked my face. I must have been 5. Why would anybody want to do that? Why? But when it's been happening for so long, it just becomes normal. There were other times when my father used to abuse me, usually in the toilet or in the bathroom, and he'd always wash me crudely and cruelly with a hot bar of soap and a jug of boiling hot water. My dad used to put his penis in my mouth as well, and once, like my granddad did, I thought I was going to be sick. And my dad pulled me by my hair, jerked my head back and thrust my face into the toilet so I could spit out his semen in the toilet. I thought I was going to be sick. I was scared. I didn't realise what it was. I thought I was being sick. It's only now I know that it was semen. It felt sticky. It was horrible. It tasted disgusting. I kept boking and boking and boking. And my father took me into the bathroom, gave me my toothbrush and brushed my teeth so hard. I was so scared of soap. I was so scared of that toothbrush. I don't like soap now, and I guess I never ever will. And when we moved from the cottage, from the factory cottage, the semi-detached cottage, the last 2 at the end of a row from where my father worked, the factory where my father worked, when we moved into our new council house, the abuse in the house stopped. I was never abused in a house again by my father. It then began on a Sunday afternoon instead, when he used to go to the petrol station to get petrol. And with a promise of a chocolate bar, Turkish delight for him and a Milky Way for me, on the way home, on the drive on the way home, I would sit in the passenger seat. No rules back then about children wearing seat belts. He would expose himself to me, and he'd ask me to rub him. We lived in a very, very rural area, and he never got caught. Once at the petrol station, I had to stay in the car, and the man filled the car with petrol, And I remember the ting-ting of the bell as the car went over and entered into the petrol station. That was just enough time for my dad to zip up his trousers, laugh with the man, filling up the car with petrol, buy me a chocolate bar for being a good girl. And that man who put petrol in my car, in my dad's car, didn't even realise on the journey there and on the journey home, my father would expose himself to me, maybe push my mouth into his private area and stuff his penis in my mouth. I remember it, and it disgusts me. And I hope by listening to this, we all now realise how disgusting abuse is and how it affects us. No matter how much counselling you have, we will always remember. But one thing we can do is to take control back. Thank you for listening. And my story continues again very soon.